Hello again, I am Blunty. Breaking news for you today. Video game fans are angry and are engaging in emotionally charged fan versus fan arguments on high-concept debate platforms like Reddit and Twitter. The fandom is in an uproar, splintered and fractured in a way that may never heal, so we may never again be one true fandom. You see, gameplay balance is broken. This is the end of Hunter Unity. The guild is cleaved in twain. It is the end of the franchise as we know it. Or possibly some gamers just overreacting and doing what they always do and, perhaps depressingly, most of all, will always do. Spinning teasers and snippets of promotional materials ahead of a game launch to conjecture and guesswork their way to extrapolation and deciding that these fractions of information and the imagined consequences thereof are absolute facts before, of course, they've even actually played the game in question to make an informed decision about what's going on. Hilariously, though, this is all coming from a fandom with kind of absurdly short memories, because I remember exactly the same arguments happening before Rise base game launched too. And quite a lot of it was blind panic over crap that just never happened, or turned out to be amazingly fun things that everybody loved. So, here's the deal. I speak, of course, of Monster Hunter Sunbreak, the big expansion to Monster Hunter Rise. It's looming, just 5 weeks away now. The hype is getting real, the marketing machine is ramping up. And over the last week, the Monster Hunter team have been feeding out short videos, showing off new moves, new combos, and new silkbind abilities for each of the 14 weapon types. For some players, there's been a lot to be excited about. The new system of being able to switch movesets on the fly promises some very high skill ceiling gameplay opportunities, or simply some badass fun combat choices. But for some, they're worried about balance. They're very worried about balance. They are deeply concerned about balance. They are panicked about the balance. And there's a weird two-sided coin in the Monster Hunter community on this. As, of course, Monster Hunter is a PvE game, there is zero player versus player activity at all. We're all in this together, we're all working towards the same goal, we're on the same side, and sometimes we even manage to coordinate in a team effort towards that goal. And so the argument comes on one side of the coin that finely tuned balance is irrelevant in this game. So what if some weapon types pour out way more DPS than others, or weapon A can solo a Zenogre in 7 minutes while weapon B takes 12 minutes, and even skilled hands? The idea is you just play the weapon you find most engaging, fun, and what feels best to you. There's no Monster Hunter League, there's no ELO calculation for zero-sum relative skill level for some kind of leaderboard or best hunters. There's no tournaments, no championship, no rankings. There's barely even a significantly sized speedrunning scene for these games. There is, of course, a meta for each weapon and armor build, with some mathematically most efficient and highest DPS builds out there, but even the meta builds aren't even close, not even close to being essential for normal and fun gameplay, and not even essential for particularly efficient gameplay. And there is a mathematically best weapon and a build to go with it that on average consistently gets faster time to kill rates than other weapons tend to do, but again, it's not even close to essential for just normal gameplay or even good gameplay. And all this stuff is one of the many things I personally enjoy about Monster Hunter. Without this kind of focused inter-player competition stuff, it has kept Monster Hunter a lot freer of the kinds of poisonous and petty infighting and toxic behavior that you'll find infesting so many other player communities out there. So, the issue of finely honed balance between the weapon types for some in the community is an absolute non-issue at all, and are confused to why people even argue about it in the first place. Just play the weapon or weapons you enjoy most. Play them in the combat style you enjoy, and jobs are good. And no harm, no foul, no one's worse off for your choice. So long as you're having fun, that's fine. But, on the other side of the coin, there's the argument that disparately misbalanced weapons, where some just simply cannot compete with the DPS output no matter what build or combat style they choose of other weapons. Hello Gunlance users, how are you today? You feeling good about your choices in Rise? So the mindset is, I think, if for example the longsword is mathematically the best weapon, the most consistent DPS, the quickest time to kill, the lowest risk playstyle, it's unfair. I mean, why choose any other weapon when you know it's not quote-unquote the best choice? If one weapon overshadows the rest so significantly, then anyone not playing that weapon must feel bad about the weapon they're using. They feel jealous of the other weapon. They really should be switching to the other weapon so they play the best weapon. And I really struggle to find this perspective understandable. I've tried and I've tried. It's a mindset I just cannot relate to. The consideration that a game isn't worth playing or isn't fun unless you're doing it precisely the mathematically most efficient way possible. I don't know about you folks, but I play video games for fun, for entertainment, relaxation, and engaging challenges to enjoy. I don't play games to make spreadsheets and play so mathematically mechanically that the only thing that possibly matters is how fast the fun part is finished. It's absurd to me. The incentive, as I see it, to play the non-mathematically optimal weapons is variety, fun, engagement, immersion, personal style, and expression choices. You know, the emotionally engaging parts of entertainment mediums. Now, I tend towards maining Switch Axe right now because it's super fun, in my opinion. It's a cool weapon. It has some fun combat choices. It looks pretty badass in pretty much everything you do. I can do anime crap like jump up and stab my weapon deep into a monster's face, chainsaw out a massive burst of damage, and backflip away like a goddamn superhero, landing on the ground and dragging my weapon through the dirt to slow down my massive momentum. It feels badass. But I've also been enjoying the Insect Glaive recently, almost diametrically opposed to the playstyle of Switch Axe, really. And it's a weapon I didn't even touch till a few weeks ago, really. And I'm really enjoying the absurd fun of the aerial playstyle, flipping and spinning and flomping around the monsters, twirling my damage across their backs and wings. And I can tell you right now, my chosen playstyle for the Insect Glaive is not the most DPS efficient way to play this weapon, but it is the way I have the most fun. Same goes for Greatsword, a weapon that took me a while to get a feel for, but now I very much enjoy playing. Do I play it most efficiently? Hell no! I play it in a way that means I miss a little more often than I actually hit the monster, but when I do land a hit combo, I bust out some of the largest, fattest, most disgustingly filthy, vile single hit damage numbers the game is capable of generating, and that feels badass. How about dual blades? I personally find the combo system a bit limited and uninteresting. Their speciality, being particularly efficient at delivering elemental and status conditions, is, well, it's not the best approach to how Rise is set up to fight, but their Zerpy mobility and Beyblading all the way down the spine of a monster, that's super fun too. So when people suggest that because Longsword already seems so overpowered in Rise, and it's getting some apparently even more absurd overpowered buffs for Sunbreak, that this fact somehow magically devalues the other weapons and the fun and worthwhile time you can spend with them, I do not get it. I've looked at a bunch of posts with different attempts at explaining why it upsets people so much that not every weapon is precisely balanced so that they all do exactly the same DPS, or that none of them have overlapping playstyles so each and every weapon has its own particular identity that is utterly separate and pristine. I don't get it. And I get close to understanding, I think. Like, I kind of feel for hammer mains in Rise, for example, because their whole deal as a hammer main is being able to do big, huge bonk damage and get consistent and frequent monster knockdowns. They're just a concussion generator on a stick, and it's wonderful. But in Rise, if you kit out a set right, the sword and shield can often be a better hammer than hammer is. You get similarly huge single-hit bonk damage from shield bashes and much better mobility. And that's not to mention the filthy Rajang heavy bowgun, from which you can spew so many level 3 sticky bombs that even with moderate skill, a player can keep a monster in lockdown for just comedic amounts of time in a hunt. Woe betide the monster that faces a fight with 2 Rajang HBG users all at once. Compared to that concussive force of nature, the hammer kind of pales. And all of this is before whatever new weapon perks and skills Sunbreak will deliver. So I kind of get that some weapon mains can feel like their weapon identity is being a little diluted. But does that feel bad? Do you only like the hammer because it was the biggest, best bonk, instead of enjoying it because you liked the gameplay style, you liked the combat style? If another weapon does bigger bonk or equal bonk, does that make the hammer not fun to play anymore for you? I've seen arguments online this morning in particular in reaction to the reveals that Sunbreak is doubling down on the counter-style combat of Rise's longsword, which, in Rise, has become almost exclusively used as a counter-attack weapon. There's exactly one highly specific, extremely simple and wildly efficient way to play longsword, and it is a counter playstyle. And the problem for some players is, longsword becoming so counterplay dependent, in their opinion, takes away the unique identity from weapons that have been traditionally heavy counter-style weapons, like the lance, which already is pretty lackluster in Rise in most people's opinion, and whose one standout style was a strong counterattack system. So having that outclassed by another weapon, well, I mean, same argument that I had with the hammer, really. And it has been something of a sore point, and a meme in fact, for quite some time now in the Monster Hunter community, that the longsword gets a lot more love from the dev teams than any other weapon. It always gets the coolest stuff, the best stuff. It's always kept at the top of its game. And in-game, the nasty combination of longsword's horizontal gameplay style and very long blade, tripping other players up consistently, basically making everyone waste at least one skill slot in their armor to negate that issue, because better positioning alone just can't stop these sloppy bastards and their massive reach from interrupting your combos like it can with basically any other weapon. You just move out of the way a bit from the hammers, it's fine. The weep stick is a menace! Get me pictures of Spider-Man. But in Rise especially, longsword is considered to be already pretty OP, overused, and, well, frankly, a baby game easy mode weapon that only baby losers use because they're not good enough to play with other weapons that actually need skill to use. And, well, to be fair, it kind of is. Regulars know I recently went through Rise. I built a set for every single weapon type and took each and every one of them to at least 100 hunts each. And longsword, while effective, certainly was one of the most boring journeys for me to take to 100, because for most weapons it took me like 20, maybe 50 hunts even to get a really good solid feel for the weapon and its combos and its most effective playstyles and approaches. It was a long, slow learning process, a journey. But with longsword, it is kind of so dummy mode, I didn't have to adjust my playstyle for after like the 5th hunt. Because once you get the 3 basic moves you need locked in to charge up and then execute your big counter, which is extremely low risk, by the way, and super easy to position for because it just sweeps the whole area, there's just like nothing else to learn. So my hunts with longsword wound up being very, very repetitive as I climbed to 100 hunts. I mean, yes, it looks cool. It's super anime and dramatic and it looks awesome and it sounds awesome. The sound effects are awesome. The chink and swings from the blade. And it is, of course, extremely effective at punishing monsters. But to me, it just doesn't feel fun. Of course, we all have very different views about how much fun we find in different stuff, so don't you all go freaking out because I don't like longsword as much as you might. Take a big, long sip of a frosty glass of and cope. And while I do admit I will occasionally join in on the memeing at the Weeb Stick Brigade, it's only ever in a light-hearted way, chuckling it off, minus the passive-aggressive undertone of bitterness and resentment that some players slide in with it. And it kind of feels like childish jealousy from some of them at sometimes. It's a super weird vibe, the longsword hate in the Monster Hunter community. It's just, don't know what to make of it. I mean, I also used to frequently tease a mate of mine who mains Insect Glaive for his silly little Pokemon bug stick. Ha! Look at all your tiny damage numbers. Well, then I found out I really have a fun time with Insect Glaive too, and luckily for me, I have a bunch of other stuff to tease her about, so it's all good. Anyway, the fandom is in a hizzy. What do you think about it all? I'm just jazzed about a fresh new pile of content from what has become one of my favourite long-term games of all time. Bring on Sunbreak. I am so friggin' ready. Thank you for watching. Hope you made it to the end. Hope you found this interesting, informative, insightful, or just provocative in some way. Thank you as always to the Patreon scrolling above there. I am Blunty. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time. Happy hunting.